We're back and we're getting into the nitty gritty. These next 3 chapters, we're going to be getting back into Loving the Little Years, Motherhood in the Trenches. And we are going to talk through chapters 4, 5, and 6 today. And we're going to kind of jump right in because these are pretty, as you would say, thick chapters as far as concepts and things to wrestle with. But before we do, it's kind of cool to give a little foundation that can help us process some of these concepts she's going to bring up. And I remember, so gosh, what was it? Maybe 8 years ago, you and I were in community group together. So we attended a very big church, and it functioned very well and in a very healthy way where people would meet in other people's homes once a week as a group of maybe 7 or 8 couples / families. And so we did that for a few years together, you and your husband, Nick, being our group leaders. And we would talk through different things. Some of it was sermon based. Some of it was marriage based. And one semester in particular, we really dove into some marriage concepts.
Yeah.
And so give to us, our listeners, what we talked about as far as those 4 personality countries that we can kind of find ourselves in.
Okay. So
and our
if any of
husbands
you,
and opposites.
yes, if you've ever dealt into personalities, these are all just normal baseline. This stuff has been around forever. There's different countries, there's different modes of transportation, there's different animals that you can talk about, there's different letters. And I know there's Enneagram that's out there, but the 4 that we literally, I drive my teenagers crazy because I will even be in the stands at a track meet talking about, okay, in your family, who's peace, who's power, who's play, who's perfect. And they're like, Mom, again. And they don't realize how central it is for you. For me, I function so well when I know what my personality is, my driving force. And then when I know someone else's driving force, I can relate to them better. I can love them better. So the 4 countries are power. Basically, at the end of the day, when you go to sleep, what do you need in your life? Do you need power? Do you need play? Do you need peace? And that's relational peace. Or do you need perfect? Perfect meaning perfect kind of atmosphere. You're very studious, kind of cross the T's, dot the I's sort of person. So power, play, peace, and perfect. So in our small groups, we would always start with a get to know you question. Those kind of drive some people crazy, but we love them. And our mentors in our newlywed class, sometimes the entire class, we would be talking about the intro question. When you want to create community, you need to know who you're talking to, where you, I mean, I have the best questions, but basics, where are you from? What was your favorite teenage job? Where did you meet your spouse? What kind of job did you do before you stayed home? What did you do your undergraduate work in? All those kind of things. But we would always circle back to personalities. And when you get to know your children, you'll know what personality as they get older, what personality your children are. So I know who's our power person. I know who our perfect person is. And then we have 2 play kids. So when you know the personalities, you know how to love them, and you know how to discipline them well because their personalities really play into it. So I am a peace personality. I need my relationships in my life to be at peace. I will confront people if I need to simply make peace. I will make sure my children are not fighting. My children do not fight. It is something that, when they do, we reconcile quickly. I am very intentional about making sure there's relational peace in my home because that's very, very important to me. My husband is power and play. So he's either bossy Nick or he's play Nick. And he really can switch between the 2. He's very much boss at work and play when he comes home. So when he wants to go mountain biking, he wants to go out shopping, he wants to play, he wants to have fun. So I will do those things for him because those are his driving forces. So Erin, what personality do you fit mostly in?
I fit mostly in with peace and perfect. Those are kind of me. And definitely And I like how you explained that it's a relational piece, that if you're interacting with people, you're not necessarily the person to be like, okay, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And like that fills you up. That's what feels great. Whereas I'm more like, what's good for everybody? Like I can go with the flow here, you know. It's kind of
Yep.
more, are we all happy? Are we all doing good? That's kind of where I
And I
land.
think as a mom, when you do this group and you find out what personalities your moms are, you will know, like, your power moms, your bossy moms are really going to have, everybody's going to struggle with something. And I know I even wrote it. Okay. I wrote at the end of last group because this was very important for us. To be healthy, the power personality must be kind. So power mom is going to have to learn how to be kind and use her words kindly and not bulldoze everybody that's in her path to get the things done. Peace must be able to forgive. Perfect must learn how to be flexible. So your house is going to be a wreck. Everybody's not going to have matching clothes. Everything in life cannot be perfect. You have to learn how to be flexible, and play must learn how to be responsible. So your play moms, they want to go out and they want to play date and they want to do this thing and they want to bake bread and they want to throw flour and they want to have a big party. But as that kind of mom, you have to learn that there do need to be rules. There is a bedtime. Kids do need to eat. And you got to do nap time. So each mom, when you learn what their need is, so for the peace mom, I've had to learn how to really forgive people and just let it roll off my back and just keep on going. There's some things that I can fix and make peace with, and there's some things I can't. So you have to learn how to forgive. So that kind of mom, when we're talking in a group, I'm going to struggle with different things as a mom than the power mom is going to struggle with, and that the perfect mom is going to struggle with, and the play mom is going to struggle with. We're all going to have, and we have different kids. So if you got a superpower mom and a superpower kid, oh my gosh, the headbutting is going to be a whole different conversation than me. I kind of like let the power kid kind of get away with some things and have more power because I don't need power at the end of the day. So these conversations I think are very helpful in a group because you can talk to that motivation in that person and help them parent better or kind of open their eyes. So.
And this is helpful to know that when you are sitting in a group, like if you're doing this book study together as a group of moms, just to remember that it just helps us be a little more empathetic towards someone's situation, because someone could be presenting something to the group where you're like, why is this does not sound like a problem to me. But please remember, they're just so nuanced and there's always things going on that we cannot see. So, so to just be empathetic towards that and know that we're all coming from different places and we're all wired a little differently. And
we can learn from each other too. So the perfect moms, I'd be like, girls, just invite people over to your house. It doesn't matter what your house looks like. And I mean, they were looking at me like, yes, it does. Mm-hmm. It absolutely matters what my house looks like. That's a need. I need it to be. And so to be able to be flexible with each other and for them to grow and say, well, maybe it doesn't need to be as perfect as I thought it needs to be. And then for me to learn how to be a little bit more powerful in my life than to be at peace with everybody. Like, you can really learn from each other and grow a little bit, even if it's outside of what you really like. You can learn from each other how to be a better mom. But you're totally right. Give each other space. Let each other parent the way they need to parent between them and their husband and God. It's going to look different with each family. I think we need to love God and love others and let God be seen in how we interact with each other, even though if those interactions are different, based on, personalities. So,
right.
All right.
Well, and that really leads us to chapter 4. Yeah. So chapter 4 is called Fruit of the Spirit Speed Quiz. And this is one of the longer ones, which is funny to say because it's like 5 or 6 pages long.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to talk through. So
yeah, let me read through the first paragraph. Mm-hmm. Each day we get a sheet of paper with math problems on them, except instead of basic addition and subtraction, they are little tests for our patience, for our peace, for our kindness. It's a regular Fruit of the Spirit Speed Quiz. They are easy, basic Christian living challenges brought to us daily by our children, and the allotted time is in our waking or sleeping hours. So every day, God gives us circumstances where we practice the fruit of the Spirit. And as we get it, the challenges get newer and harder problems, replace them. So God is growing us every day, sanctifying us, but he's also sanctifying our children. So this is kind of what the chapter is about. How do we grow our kids, and how does God grow us?
Yeah. And it's true. The opportunities are always there. And I have sometimes had to shift. Okay. So I think a lot of us can relate to the toddler. Oh man, toddlers are strong. And already, I mean, Reese is 10 months old and he's strong, as in like, I'm trying to change his diaper and he's rolling around like an alligator and I can't contain him. Like it's really hard. But I mean, remember the times when you're like wrangling your toddler into their car seat and like you're sweating and it's just you just want to get back in the front seat, turn the air on and just like breathe. Yeah. But here you are trying to wrestle your child. And I feel like God gave this to me a long time ago, a few years ago. Like this is an opportunity to practice patience. This right before me right now. This is like and you can picture it too. You're like in the Target parking lot and people are hearing your kids screaming and you just need to get out of there. This is an opportunity to practice patience. I get to show my kid right now patience, especially if they have older siblings. They get to see me right now handle a situation that's really difficult, really challenging, and I get to practice patience. And so, yeah, I think chapter 4 really showed a lot about how much and how fast motherhood changes. You know, I think back to my motherhood 3 years ago, and I had 4, but you know, they were all younger ages. And then and then now here we are, we have another little one and we just now have to use the gate again at the top of the stairs. We're in a bi-level. So we live like we have to guard off stairs once the baby starts crawling. And it wasn't that long ago that I was doing it for my number 4. Now we're doing it for number 5. And my husband went to shut the gate yesterday. And we used to have this phrase to help teach the boys, if you open the gate, you must close the gate. If you open the gate, you must close the gate. So we had this funny little saying. One of the boys made it up. It kind of sounds like abracadabra, but they would say, if they open the gate to warn everyone, they would say, gate open, zee-za-zee. Like it made no sense at all. I don't know where it came from. But my husband said it yesterday when he opened the gate. He went, gate open, zee-za-zee. And like instantly I'm like, oh my gosh, we haven't said that in so long. And now we have to say it again, but like, oh my gosh, when did we stop saying that? Like I forgot whenever we stopped saying it. It must've been whenever Leo was able to do the stairs safely. And so here we are, we have to do it again, but it's different now. And, I just think that it's a good reminder in this chapter that there's repetition, there's things that need to happen, but as our kids get older and as we learn their personalities, like you mentioned, that sometimes we can present these whatever concept we're trying to teach them, we get to do it in new and different ways, especially as it relates to if we have a really funny guy and we put an example of a situation in a story that's really funny, it's going to resonate way more with them if I'm just like, Eli, we can't do that. That's not something we can do. Whereas if we say it in a story that's funny, it's going to stick so much more and then they can put it to use. And I think Jesus did that all the time with his parables. You know, he would present the concept of the kingdom of heaven. How many times he would present it differently? And I just think it's another cool way we can, approach our mothering as far as teaching the kids what you want them to learn. So
yeah, I have a practical application. My oldest went through honors geometry this year, and I was literally pretty much tutoring her every single night. And what I realized was that her algebra was like basic addition to her. She had done algebra for so long that it was so automatic for her to apply that to geometry. Well, my second born is going through algebra right now, and all the time, complaining about why do we have to do this stuff over and over and over and over and over and over and over? I mean, I've heard her say this same sentence. And then I had the answer, because one day you're going to be in geometry and you're going to need to have algebra as as your basic addition facts. So easy. So when we're teaching like she mentioned, you need to give them the building blocks to do the big stuff, because one day those patience applications that we've been teaching and learning and being kind and being gentle and being loving are going to be need to apply to a very bigger application. And it needs to be like simple addition for them. It needs to be automatic how they respond to people. How do they respond in patience? So all of these little things are the building blocks that they are really going to be able to use for the rest of their lives to do the big things when they become teenagers and even older. So she mentioned, if you see a toddler pitching a fit in his chair, think about an angry teenager in the car. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I get it. You need to, developmentally appropriate. They need to be able to handle their emotions and all of their things. So we are their guides and their teachers. They're gentle, kind teachers, disciplining them with love, how to receive the fruit of the Spirit little and practice it. You just practice. At our house, we don't say practice makes perfect. We say practice makes permanent. Whatever you're practicing is going to become permanent. So however you speak, it's going to be however you think becomes permanent to you. How you react becomes your permanent. So be careful what you're practicing.
That's so good. Yeah. I think I wrote it. Let me think. Let me see. Yes. Yeah. Page 23, when she talks about exactly what you said, how if your son is in his high chair struggling with anger about his vegetables, you should see a high school boy acting out after he lost a basketball game. I think it's the same concept like you're saying. And to give him the tools now that he will need then. And I'm in the middle of reading a book called Raising Emotionally Strong Boys. And boy, is this like so relevant. It's so relevant. And teaching them these things outside of the moment. So when things are calm, the waters are still, and presenting to them like a situation, like, well, how should we handle this? How could we handle it? You're devastated. You just lost the championship. How are you going to feel on the inside? Okay, how should we act on the outside? Things like that. So the motherhood's tricky, where you kind of have to be thinking so many steps ahead. But I'm telling you, like, the more you're in tune with the Spirit, I feel like he gives us those moments. He really does.
Yep. Here's another practical example that just a hook that I think our mentors taught us young is to hang out with a mom of older kids that you like, the kids that you like, not necessarily mom, but if you see older kids and you like you like how they're acting, how they're interacting, hang out with that mom and figure out what she did. Now, she might not be able to pinpoint what she did for those kids to turn out that way, but you'll start to see her attitude. How do they talk? How does she react? How do the kids respect her? How and when does she discipline them? How does she do that effectively? And just find somebody ahead of you and you like their kids and just do what they do. We've also been told, if you find a marriage that's 30, 40, 50 years down the road that you like, go have dinner with these people and let them become a part of your life and then copy what they do. Again, they might not be able to pinpoint the big things, but it's all little things that they do that is going to produce children that you want to hang around with. Like all my teenagers, we hang out together. We went to ice cream last night, just three of us, because we like being together. The teenage years can be a super amazing, fun, enjoyable time. And me and my girls get along because all along the way we've developed a relationship. We've been walking through life together. I've always been respectful to them, and I've always required them to be respectful and loving to me. And so we have a mutual respect and love that's nurtured into a friendship when they're older. So find somebody that that you like their kids, and then ask them what you do, hang around them, go to their house and see how do they interact with their kids, and then do the things that they do.
Did you have anything else for chapter 4?
I do one more. This chapter, I think sometimes when I do this small group, we only stay on this chapter. There's so much meat in this one. One last thing, I think this is just for our family, but I will pass it on for those who want to catch it and do it. Our mentors recommended, we hadn't even had kids yet, that when we had kids and as we decided to do sports, they recommended that we not do sports until the kids were in middle school. And when we did do them, to look at the schedule ahead of time and make sure there was absolutely no commitments on Sundays. And if there was a commitment on Sundays, that we would forego it, that we would decide actually not to do that sport. And we actually decided to do this. Now, we were in med school and residency when our kids were really little. I was not able to run around and do all the sports. So it actually really fit into what we were going through in our life. But now we have one in high school, 2 will be in middle, and 1 in elementary, and we stuck to it. Our one going into middle is just now doing their first at-school sport. We don't travel, we don't go. And here's why. They recommended that we put massive margins in our life, that we would go through life slowly with our kids, that we would have dinner at the table 365 days a year. And we do. There's 8 of us in our home. There's 2 grandparents, 2 parents, and 4 kids. And it's one time during the day where it's a touch point for all of us, where we sit down, we look at each other, we listen, we talk. This is our time to, and it was so frustrating when they were little. Guys, you can't talk over the other one. You need to wait a second. I mean, I remember bringing my wooden spanking spoon to the table and just laying it on the table as a visual reminder to these children that there were certain things that were required of them when we were at dinner with each other. We were going to talk, we were going to interact. If me and dad were in a conversation, they're going to need to wait for a second. And we've learned, our kids know how to wait, how to talk, how to have conversation. When we go out to eat, people will look at us at the table. They will come over and talk to us afterwards, how our children are so well behaved. They're like little adults. And because we've had dinner and we've put margin in our life, that is something that we've been able to produce. And it's those little moments every single day. It's not something huge. It's the little things that make your family the way it is. So I would, frazzled mom makes frazzled kids. A hurried mom can make anxious kids. So leave margin in your life. And everything in our world wants to tell you to do everything for your kids, the Spanish, the piano, the travel soccer, the travel volleyball, and they just don't need it. And it's not good for them and for your family to be eating on the run all the time, to be in a hurry and to have something else to go to. And we're always going to something where we can just sit down. Then we can invite other families to our home. We can have times where we have margin for other people because we're not so busy with our own stuff. So,
yeah.
All right. Chapter 5.
Chapter 5, Spirited Riders. So she really, I say throughout the whole chapter, uses an illustration of our kids are a rider on a horse, and the horse is their emotions.
Yes, very metaphorical in this.
Very metaphorical. And I really like on chapter 29. So she talks about when our emotions act up, it's like it's like the horse trying to jump the fence and run down into the yucky place full of spiders to get lost in the dark. A good rider knows what to do when the horse tries to bolt. You pull on the reins, turn the horse's head, get back on the path. So she tells her kids that that God told us if we see one of them with her horse down in the mud puddle, spitting at people who walk by, it's our job to haul them up, willing or unwilling, back on the path. So I like that she uses that illustration for a few reasons. One of which, it shows the kid that they are in control of their emotions. There's a responsibility there that they have to rein in their emotions. Of course, we understand sometimes they're tired, sometimes they're hungry. Sometimes It's been a long day. These are all very true factors where I think as a mom, I'm strong empathetically, almost to a fault sometimes, but I try my best to understand where they're coming from. But we can't negate the fact that our kids are responsible for their emotions, because out of emotions, a lot of times come actions that they don't want to do, or they shouldn't do, or are just plain old sinful. So I like the illustration because it gives the responsibility to the child, but I also like how it really shows the child that as the parent, God has given us the authority to be that person that if they are going off into the wrong path, it's our God-given authority to pull them back to where they're supposed to be. Yeah. And so I think that Not only is it a great illustration for the kids, but I think it's a good illustration as us moms that we're riding a horse all day too.
Yep. Yep.
We're on our own horse. And if our horse is bucking around and our horse is acting crazy and our horse is
Then you
nipping,
need to
nipping,
take
nipping,
a nap or eat. Yes. Yes.
we need
Our
to take
big
a nap.
thing with the kids, yes, you need to eat and talk. And one of my girls, she had slept over with someone. They had stayed up super duper late, and she got her, and she is not normally like this. And everything that came out of her, it felt, I was like, what is happening? And I said, I don't talk until you have slept. And because we have a relationship, she obeyed me. She knows we have talked about, do not do all this when you're hungry and tired. You're going to say something you're going to regret, and you're going to do something maybe that you regret. That's not God honoring. So don't say anything until you slept. And we make it funny, but I'm totally serious. And she didn't. She did not speak again until she had taken a big long nap. And I think with our emotions, I do not have big emotions. And some personalities do. I do not. And I think what this chapter really about is helping the child identify their emotion and then how to use it to glorify God. Jesus had anger, but the way that he used that anger glorified God. He had grief and bitterness, and not bitterness, grief and extreme sadness. And he honored God in the way that he used those emotions. And you can have times of pure excitement and joy, and you can honor God with those. So I actually, when I have groups, I tell my group, I cut my kids off. I don't let my kids have super highs and super lows. And what I mean by that is if they're in extreme excitement, I have 3 girls and 1 boy. I do not let my girls squeal or scream. There were some neighbors, we have some neighbor girls, and they were squealing and screaming the other day. And I looked at my girls and I said, doesn't it sound like there's an emergency? Like it sounds like someone's dying. I've always told them, you just can't, you can't make emergency noises and not have an emergency. My girls have just never screamed and squealed. I don't like that noise, but I had to train that in them because girls will naturally scream and squeal. And wait till you get them in middle school. They will absolutely scream and squeal in middle school. Also, I don't let them have extreme anger. Now we don't really have a kid that really struggles with anger, but when they were little, like if you lost a game or someone took something from you, I never let them go to that big deep, that big down. I would come in and cut them off. We would calm down. We would talk about it, but you can let them get off into the mud. And I just didn't let them. So our kids have very good emotions right in the middle. There are highs, there are lows. We've had times of grief. My kids through middle school have lost terrible games and they've won by huge blows. And to teach those kids ahead of time, what kind of emotions is it going to feel like if you win all the awards at awards day? Well, you need to be humble. If you win no awards at awards day, you need to clap for every person that walked through and be so proud for them, encourage them and be so excited for them. So we've been able to talk outside of those emotional times. It's much easier to talk than when they're in the deep emotional times. But teach your kids about emotions. God has given them to us, but how do we use them to honor him is kind of the gist of this chapter. And we need to practice that for ourselves. We need to have emotions and show our emotions to our children that we are emotional beings, but honor God as much as we can in all. And when you can't, get something to eat and go take a nap.
I also underlined, highlighted on page 30, they need the security of parents pulling them back. And I think that's to sum up everything that you just said, there's security there in knowing that their parent has them, whether it's an exuberant joy or a depressing low, that you're there to come alongside them. And I love how she says that the goal is not to cripple the horse. I feel like that's
no emotion. Well,
it's
God
such a
did
problem.
make us emotional. Yeah, God made us emotional beings. Yeah, Buddhism wants you to just calm. Buddhism wants everything, no emotion, no feeling, no pleasure, no pursuit, and it's a lie from the devil. God wants us to enjoy this life abundantly, and be full of joy and full of pain and full of sorrow and full of every emotion imaginable. So teaching our kids how to do that well is
The
such a
first
tool for them.
Oh yeah. Well, the first fruit of the spirit is joy. I mean, there's a reason we're supposed to have those feelings of joy. And but there's also it starts with joy, but it wraps with self-control. And
Yep.
so all of these
Yep.
things put together, and knowing that as a mom, it's one of our jobs is to teach them this, and first and foremost showing, being an example. There's so much strength. One of the things I thought of when you were describing all of the high highs, the low lows, is that there's a strength there. If you're able to control under all of those circumstances, then you're showing your kids how to be strong emotionally. So it's good.
Yeah. All right, heavy branches. I love this one. This is also very rhetorical. She tells a story about this huge apple tree that was outside her bedroom. And during the summer, she would hear these big thumping apples falling like all the time to the ground. And basically what her metaphor is that God wants you to produce fruit in your life. And that doesn't mean bear children. I think what she means, I'm going to take it to a more spiritual level, in that be obedient to what God is telling you to do. If he tells you to do something small, do it. If he tells you to do something big, do it. Do what God is telling you to do. I think a lot in the Christian life, we hear don't. There's a lot of no's. But more as I've matured, there are more yeses to the Christian life than no's. Do the thing, be a doer of the word, go be a blessing to somebody, and do what God is telling you to do. So what she's saying with this is, bear fruit, do the thing that God tells you to do, even if it falls off and rots, even if it gets taken away to the dump. But maybe it gets taken to the grocery store and it feeds somebody, or it gets planted and turns into 1,000 new apple trees. Obey God in the small and the big things. And I have so many personal examples in my life of when I've said yes to God when he's told me to do things.
Yeah. And it's not always, it's scary a lot of times, especially, and to reference back to the beginning of this podcast with our personalities and how we've been wired. Some of us are much more cautious and can kind of think through how something might go wrong and then decide not to do it. I can remember with our moms group at church, and when I was asked years ago to lead a table, and I felt so ill-equipped and I felt so unable to do. What if I don't know what to say? What if I don't have an answer to that question? What if I say something wrong? These are all the things I thought through. And I went to my husband and I told him what I was struggling with. And he said, well, how did that work out for Moses when he was saying no to God initially? And I'm like, okay, I guess I got to do this.
He will be strong where you're weak. He just wants you to obey him. And you don't have, if you can do it on your own strength, then you're not doing what God asked you to do. He wants you to say yes, to start walking, and then he will be right there just beside you to finish the job that he wants. He has good works for you to do, but he's going to help you do the work that he's planned for you to do. So I just started writing all these little things that God's told me to do. Sometimes I did them right away. Sometimes it took me a while, but pay for that meal at the restaurant. Pay for that old lady's groceries without her knowing it. Go knock on a door and make a new friend. Take cookies to a neighbor that you don't know. Start a small group. Give a plant away to a teacher next door that you might have conflicting personalities with. Ask an older lady to coffee to talk about their life. Go up to a mom after church and invite her to a group or to lunch and watch that relationship grow 10 years later. Ask a couple or a family to come over for dinner. All of these are super risky. They all get you out of your comfort zone. And we have to be risky with our faith and do what God's asking us to do. And then I remember when we moved to New Jersey, our church was interviewing him, and the guy behind the camera seriously was like, how did you say yes when God told you to like pack up your family and move and like pursue medical career? How did you how did you say yes? And Nick said the best quote I've never forgotten. He said, when you say yes to God in the little things over and over and over, the big things are super easy to say yes to. So when you say yes to the little things and you see him be so faithful and you see the fruit that it produces in your life, when you see the big things, you're like, you almost jump on it. Like, yes, like what kind of blessing is this going to be? Because when you've seen the little things, it becomes big. I mean, we were able to house, a single mom and her daughter in our home for an entire year. And that started that easy yes, which people looked at me like, how, that's a big yes to me. Well, it wasn't, because when we had said yes to all the other things, God's ask of us was the same, but our window was bigger. And what a blessing it was to have them in our home, to be blessed and to be a blessing. Started from the little bitty yeses 10 and 20 years, way before that. So, I mean, it can be big. God could tell you to go to China, to go to Africa, to adopt a kid, to be a part of foster system. Those feel like big yeses, but they start with the little yeses as God's asking you to produce fruit and be productive in your Christian walk. Well, then the asks just get bigger and the yes just gets quicker. And God asked me to start a prayer group in my school this past year, last summer. And I just got up in front of the whole faculty and told them the whole story. It was kind of like I made excuses all year long for 10 months. And they were legitimate excuses. And I just kept shaking my head at myself like, Braxton, you've walked with God long enough. You know how to, why are you not saying yes to this? And it was 4 weeks before school was ended. And I was like, enough is enough. And it felt like just like, poof, enough is enough. And I wrote the email and I said, I know we're almost at the end of school, but if anybody wants to come to my room and pray, this is what we need to be praying for. God has put this on my heart, and I will be here every single Wednesday. I will turn my alarm off and I will shut my lights off for 30 minutes if anybody wants to come. And that it went out to 250 faculty. And I don't know what God's going to do with that next year, but it doesn't even matter, because the yes is what's important. It's the small obedience to do the big things of where God, he can't do anything until you do something. You have to do something for God to be the hands and the feet and the salt and the light to the world around you. So I love this chapter, like super a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love the illustration of the tree too, because and if I can give like an exhortation, and I think this goes back to what you said, how in our weakness he is strong. If you get an apple from the store, there's no way what farm that came from, unless you do your research. You can go to the farmer's market and you can get an apple and where it came from. But I mean, generally speaking, if the apple's not saying, oh, that was my apple. That's that one. What do you think of it? It's pretty good, right? I feel like we have to check our hearts a lot of times to remember that any good anyone's seeing in me is from God. Because if it's left up to me, it's going to be pretty sour. So, there's confidence there in knowing that whatever you're doing for the Lord, no matter where it goes out to, how far reaching or small reaching it is, do it to the glory of God, and just give him the rest. And the verse in Psalms that I think a lot of times is, God, just make my heart clean, make my motives good, have them line up with yours, because God sometimes puts you into a more and more prominent position, and it can be easy to feel like, oh man, I'm really doing good at this. I nailed that one. I did. We need to check ourselves, because any good that's happening is from the Lord. So I just like to say that, because again, it's not like the apple's saying, look at how pretty my
Yep.
the
And
tree
the tree has no idea where that apple went or who it's feeding. It's like it's gone. Like those things that we do, we don't know the ripple effects of what is going to happen because we've been obedient and we've done something. It could be generations later. It could go states away. It could go across the world. We have no idea where that's going, but God takes it and he makes that apple go wherever he needs it to go. All right. Can I pray for our listeners to do what God's telling them to do? All right, Jesus, thank you for this time. Thank you for this book. It's just such great little nuggets. Thank you for her godly wisdom and the ability for us to pass it on to others. Jesus, I pray for those little stirrings that are happening in moms' hearts that are listening or watching. Jesus, I pray you would give them quick obedience. As we want our children to obey us quickly, we need to obey you quickly, Jesus, in the big, super hard things. Maybe we need to forgive somebody. Maybe we need to write a letter today and just give it to you and get rid of it. Maybe there's something we need to start. Maybe there's something we need to stop. Maybe there's a relationship we need to begin or just put ourselves out there. Jesus, whatever you're telling that girl, I pray you would give her the obedience to do it right away, and that you would let her fingers go of it. Would you take that good work and that obedience, and would you bless it and multiply it in each of our lives? In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Next week, we're going to talk through, what are we talking through? 7 through 9.
7, 8, 9.
All right.